Hi, Kevin. Sorry about missing this assignment. As I was explaining in my email, the Dropbox works very much like emails. It shows that you have something new to mark until you actually open it and read it. And then once you've done that, it's no longer showing up in the list of things that are waiting to be read. So I must have opened this, actually. I do remember opening this and thinking, oh, I need to make a video for him. And then I got called away and forgot all about it. So please just email me if you don't hear back from me within 24 hours when you've submitted an assignment. You should get your feedback within a day on that. So there's some questions here that I want to go over with you. It's really, really important, the understanding of some of these concepts going forward, especially for next year. You're having a little bit of difficulty, I think, with some of the understanding some of the terms and what they mean. First of all, with the y-intercept, like in the first one here, the y-intercept always occurs when x equals 0 because it's a point right on the y-axis, so the point has to have an x value of 0. So what we're really doing is just substituting in x equals 0 to the equation. So in this case, if we put an x equals 0 in both of these terms, because they both have an x, we're going to get y equals 0. So your intercept is 0, 0. When you write your axis of symmetry, you need to write it as an equation because it's a line, and all lines have an equation. So it needs to say x equals 0.63, not just a value 0.63, because that's just a singular value. It doesn't show up on a graph. You seem to be getting a little bit mixed up with your maxes and mins, and the simple rule to follow for max and mins for parabola is if you have a negative in front of the quadratic, then it's going to be a max, because that means that our parabola is going to open upside down like that. If it's positive, it's going to open upward, and then you have a min, because you're always finding this vertex point here or here, and so depending on the position of the parabola, it's either going to be the highest point or the lowest point. So here you got it right that it was a min, but then for the next question, even though it's positive, you wrote max, and so use that as a rule of thumb, and this one should be a min, and so on, okay? So for your vertex, if your axis of symmetry is at x equals 0.63, then that's the x-coordinate of your vertex. You can always just go right back there and pick that number up from there. So your vertex coordinates should start with 0.63, and then what you're going to do is substitute 0.63 into the original equation over here, and whatever you get for y is the y value of your vertex, so you're going to fill it in where I wrote y there. Now that seems to be consistent all the way down the chart, that you're not picking up the right values. Actually, I think you've got them reversed. So if you put in minus 1 for the x value, and then when you substitute minus 1 into this equation, in this case, actually, you'll get minus 37 for the y value, so that should be the coordinates of the vertex, and so on. Here, if the axis is 0, the axis of symmetry is 0, then your x value for your vertex is 0, and the y-intercept 4 will become your y-coordinate for your vertex there. So again, here, start with minus 4, sub that into the equation to get your y value. In this case, 16 minus 32, so you get negative 16 there, and so on. So those are the major problems. I've marked them right and wrong here for you so that you can have another look at them and try to correct them. The only other thing on this page that I want to talk to you about is when you come across parabola, such as the very last one here. What I want you to do here is when you see that negative in front of the x squared term, I want you to take it out. So factor it out like I've done here. I took the negative out front, and that just changes the sign of every term once you write it in the bracket. Now you're ready to factor, and your factors will change according to what you've got here. You'll be a little bit different, but that negative just gets factored out. And the nice thing about that is that the next step when you're finding roots is setting the equation equal to 0. So if we're going to do that, then when I've got that equation written, if I divide both sides by -1, the negative goes away and you don't have to worry about working with it anymore. And that's the best way to approach it when that happens. Okay, over to page 2 here now, and you calculated the roots correctly here for question 2. Your axis of symmetry is the midpoint, don't forget. So if you add those together and divide by 2, the axis of symmetry should be 8. You're using 8 correctly though in the equation for part B. At what time does the ball reach its maximum height? So you figured that part out. That's great. All right. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong question. That's the problem. What's the maximum area of the yard? Okay, that's good because that's the vertex. Where's your answer for C here? What are the dimensions of the yard at its maximum area? You need to give an answer for that as well. I don't see question 1 here. I'm not sure where it went. Let me have a look back here. No. So you've, word problem number 1. Oh, this is 2, 3, and 4? No. Let me just check and see what the instructions were. No. So you need to hand in question 1 as well. That's not here. Question 3 looks good. Don't know what happened to this equation here. I'll have to go back and investigate that one a little bit because that one should factor. Later on, when you're using the quadratic formula to solve, you can find t using the quadratic formula. So 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7, 9, 9, 8. I'm going to run out of room there. Over 2 times a, so over 4. So you can work it out, and one of those is going to be positive and one will be negative, and the negative will have to be thrown out because you can't have negative germs. You can't have negative numbers of anything in terms of, living things and stuff like that. So question 4, you did a great job. That one's perfect. It's just that you missed question 1, and I need you to go back and look at some of the corrections that I mentioned here. Make sure that you really understand those going forward, okay?